MG recently released the beast of a car, the MG4 X-Power, which I'm really excited to have a drive in. I've got no idea when that will be at all. I once spent some time with an Audi RS3. That was really awesome. The 380 horsepower four-wheel drive hatchback, a really cool car. Really a lot of fun, and if there was an electric version of a car with those sorts of numbers, it would be great. And actually, the MG4 X-Power is very comparable to that on paper. So whatever way you look at it, it's probably going to be great fun because it's four-wheel drive, looks really good, a motor at the front, motor at the rear, and 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 3.8 seconds. So that's really fast. It actually gets much more interesting though if you know anything about the 1980s Group B rally cars. A weird thing to say, wasn't it? But there is definitely a thing to say here at the end of this video, so stick around and watch for that. Thanks for joining me. It's really nice to see so many people subscribing to the channel. I'm Ben Alexander, and I talk about the latest EV news around the world, and I make videos every single day. So stick around until the end, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. So let's talk about the MG4 then. We'll talk about the Group B rally car that they're bringing back to life. And if you don't know about that, Group B rally cars existed as a very fast sort of rally car in the 80s, but too many people died, basically. There were just so many crashes in it. So they decided to cancel, like not even just slow it down, but they cancelled it. Basically, it's a sort of sports version of the regular MG4. And yes, it is coming to Australia, but it is $70,000 or $69,000. And then you've got to pay on-road costs minus rebates, which is a bit of a thing at the minute. We'll get into that. It's really fast, 420 horsepower, 320 kilowatts if you use kilowatts, 3.8 seconds to 60 miles per hour or 100 kilometers per hour, which is bonkers. If you've ever been on a sports bike, they're very fast. And actually, this is not far off of that sort of acceleration from 0 to 100. It's that sort of fast. So the battery is the 64 kilowatt hour version. Range is 385 kilometers WLTP, or about 240 miles. And you will actually get this if you drive on a motorway at 90 or 100 kilometers per hour or 60 miles an hour. You will actually get the WLTP. Maybe not in winter, maybe not, I don't know. The battery is the 64 kilowatt hour, so the range is about 385 kilometers WLTP, or around 240 miles. And you will get this if you drive fairly efficiently and it's not freezing outside. So if you drive 90 or 100, for example, on the motorway, you will see pretty much the WLTP. If you drive efficiently, you might even get more than that. If you drive at 110, obviously that it takes a fair bit more energy to drive 110 than it does 100, for example, because the wind is like syrup and it's getting thicker. So effectively, so the usable size of the battery is 61.8, which if you do a bit of math, you can work out how much battery they reserve at the bottom of the charge and the top of the charge, really just for the longevity of the battery, which is a really important thing. So I'll just briefly cover some, I suppose, a little bit of basic stuff about battery chemistry and the health of batteries. So if you're not new to EVs, you might want to skip a little bit, but it's fine, it's not too boring. So the MG4 X-Power does have some amazing features which are pretty cool. So it actually does have locking electric differential and intelligent motor control to allow torque vectoring. If you don't know what that is, Google it. Between all four wheels. Kind of basically means there's like a brain and some systems that allows the wheels to rotate and sort of almost reverse some of the inner wheels to just really twist the car around corners. It's pretty cool stuff. They have also tweaked the suspension and added some upgrades such as recalibrated stiffer springs and new dampers, stiffer anti-roll bars and sharper steering, and this is resulting in a 25% stiffer chassis and suspension. So they've done stuff to the chassis too. The engineering team has also recalibrated the regenerative braking, software to allow one pedal driving in suitable conditions. So it also has, get this, 345mm discs, brake discs on all four wheels with Bridgestone Turanza tyres, which is kind of bonkers. This is really like supercar beating stuff. It's pretty cool. The UK, it costs 36,000 quid basically. Australia, $69,000. And then on top of those, you need to put on whatever cost you have, like road tax, for example, etc., etc., road costs, and then take off any rebates that you get wherever you are. So thank you very much to anybody for joining on Patreon, YouTube memberships, which is great. It's a great option to join maybe YouTube memberships. That's pretty cool. Buy Me a Coffee is also another good one. If anybody wants to support my cause, links to these are in the description below, because this allows me to be able to keep on making these videos, bringing the latest EV news to you all, and trying to shine a light on this information, really try and spread this information on EVs, and in particular the cheaper end of the market, so we can try and get that going. The easiest and cheapest way though is to just help me by pressing the like button and subscribing. So about the Group B rally car thing I mentioned, this is pretty nifty. This came out of nowhere really. Basically, MG are bringing out another sporty car designed and inspired by the old MG Metro Group B rally car. And it's called the MG EX4, which is apparently paying homage to the old rally car, the MG6R4, which I'll put a picture on the screen now, which was basically a small but fast four-wheel drive rally car in the 80s with 410 horsepower. Pretty crazy. But here are the pictures. Basically, they have said it is coming out and we can buy it, but no idea when. It will have 430 horsepower, four-wheel drive, very, very sporty, heaps of aero, but probably less on the final car that comes out, of course, because it's a bit too crazy on that many of these pictures. This is just a concept of the car, but it will look pretty close to that, as that's what we know so far. If you enjoyed the video, please consider clicking the like button for me so that YouTube know that people are enjoying my videos. And subscribe as well for daily videos about electric vehicles. Stick around also if you're interested in one of the next videos that I'll be putting out, which is actually an electric version of the Renault 5 EV, which is it is coming out. It has been spotted and there's leaked photos of it, so stick around for that. So for example, it's great to know if the car says that it's dead and it stops and it won't drive, that actually you aren't fully discharged in the batteries. The batteries do have a little bit left in there. They've done that on purpose so that you're not really pushing the batteries and causing damage, because basically if you deplete them so much, the voltage in the pack goes below a certain threshold, it actually starts to cause irreparable damage. So every manufacturer draws a line on that where they think that should be. That needs to be there. So that's really good. Basically, one of the most important things with battery chemistry, in my experience of building like e-bike batteries and playing around with them and faffing around, is running them dead is tragic. So if you were hypothetically to run them dead, like actually dead, not just dead on your EV, on your like quite nice modern EV, but properly dead, that does cause damage. So you definitely want to know that there is a proper buffer there of like a few percent. Pretty much all EVs these days have proper cooling as well on them, where it uses AC, like the actual compressor and air conditioning and liquid liquid cooling, so the heat can be removed quite quickly and effectively, because basically batteries will last longer if you make sure that it isn't ever going really above 25 degrees Celsius. And there is a graph to show this as well, actually. There's also another graph to show that if you try and make the battery live as close to the middle of the capacity or the voltage range as possible, then it will last longer, technically. We know this is true. So hypothetically, if you're able to, you will technically have less degradation over a long period of time, like 200,000 miles, if you were to keep your battery always somewhere between 30 and 80%. That's not always possible, of course. So technically, if you could do that, it's better. But if you just charge it to 100 and deplete it to 3%, And the people that do that will suffer a little bit more chemical degradation than if you were to just operate in the middle. This is true. Everybody sort of knows this if you've got an EV and you've been in the circles and talked to people. Not everybody knows this because EVs are getting bought by people that don't really know. LFP chemistry is a bit different. It is more happy to sit at 100% charge than lithium-ion chemistry. So this has only been on the scene for a couple of years now. LFP chemistry is a little bit new, but we do know that it lasts longer over 2,000 or 3,000 cycles, which, if you can imagine, 2,000 or 3,000 cycles on a car, if you can do a few hundred kilometers on each cycle, that's a lot. So technically, lithium iron phosphate cells do a little bit better through the life of the vehicle. You'll have a bit less degradation after, say, 200,000 kilometers or miles. If I should do a video on this, let me know in the comments if you'd like that, because I'm really not an expert. I'm just kind of informed and have a bit of experience. That's it, really. And batteries are far more complicated than you could probably imagine, even if you imagine them to be really complex. So generally, batteries in an EV, even after driving 200,000 miles or something like 320 kilometers, will only have something, they will only have lost something around, give or take, 10, 12, 9%, something like that, in their capacity. So it's not a big issue, in my opinion, because so long as there's proper thermal management and they're never going to get too hot, that's fine. I think that's fine. Just, I don't think the age of the batteries and also the amount of driving you do does anywhere near like 5% the amount of damage that heat does. It's just so insignificant compared to the damage that heat does if you sit. Like if you live in Brisbane, for example, never buy a Nissan Leaf. Just look on the marketplace for a used Nissan Leaf electric car, and you'll often see they've got something like 30, 40, 50% degradation of the original capacity, and they've only got like 60,000 kilometers on them. It's so tragic, it's scary. So it is known that sometimes when the car is preparing to charge, though, of course, if you live in like Scandinavia, the car will automatically, unless you tell it to preheat the battery, will heat the battery up so it can take a quicker charge, because obviously there's a lot more resistance in the battery cells when the battery cells are freezing cold. It doesn't heat them to 30 or 40 degrees Celsius, but it does heat them up to something like 20 or 25.